We are here to just give you how we came about the report for the UK, Africa, starting from Ghana, Innovation Trust Corridor. And the people that you see on stage, these are accomplished professors. You may call them academics, but they are entrepreneurial professors who have a very market-oriented mindset towards research and innovation. And that's why they had a chance, or they've been very instrumental in getting the report out. So one of the questions that we may be asking is, what is the Innovation Trust Corridor? What is it? When we talk about Trust Corridor, first of all, there's trust at the core. And then there's a concept of exchange, moving of something. So this time around, moving of innovation, moving of intellectual property, moving of ideas, moving of capacity, right? Between nations or between entities. This time around, we are looking at UK in Africa Innovation Trust Corridor. So we are looking at the moving of exchange between UK and African countries, starting from Ghana. And the kind of ideas we are looking at is, how do we co-create, so create together? How do we share? And more importantly, for the sake of, for the purpose of commercialization, how do we trade innovation amongst different countries? And the panel that just ended spoke about innovation trade across borders. Why does it matter? And from the beginning of the sessions, we've realized that Africa is lagging when it comes to the advantage that we can gain from innovation commercialization. And peer countries that we started with from the 1950s have gone 100 times fold when it comes to GDP, and we are still scratching the surface when it comes to even the growth of our economies. So when we believe that these countries have made it because of innovation and research, and if Africa toes the same line, we can also achieve similar feat. I won't bore you with the challenges of moving research from labs to market, because it has been spoken about extensively across panels. I'm going to move on that. And then I'm going to, yes, and when it comes to the trust corridor, this is not the first model when it comes to trust corridors. But from an innovation point of view, the innovation trust corridor that we are envisioning will be first of its kind. We have a model that we can look at, that's the Singapore-Ghana Financial Trust Corridor that looks at SMU trade between Singapore and Ghana. So, towards realizing the ITC, we have 4 key things that we need to be doing. The first one is research, which I'm very honored to be on stage with the key researchers. Designing the protocol, putting in place the technology infrastructure, and then the diplomatic relations that will let the trust corridor happen. That will let the nations sit down and sign that want to be on this journey together. So what has been done so far? So we've done the research-based evidence to support the formation of the Africa Innovation Trust Corridor, and also we've done research into how the innovation market looks like. So I'm going to let Dr. Acheampong just take us through some of the methodologies that they used, because he's been part of the research.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to go straight to the point. So the approach was very simple. We used a mixed method approach to try and answer some of these questions. Who are the stakeholders? What investments are required and what the barriers are? I think today we've had some of the barriers already. So it was mixed method. We did the initial reviews, did a literature review, desk reviews, and then we came up with who the actors were. We scoped private sector actors, public sector actors, and then we engaged them in qualitative insights, and then subsequently we followed up with an online survey, which we followed up to come up with the key indicators. So these are some of the research questions. So you can see the approach here, the reviews, the desk, the informative interviews of key 17 key informants, and they came from very diverse sectors. And then we did about 189 institutions in a multi-stage stratified sampling approach. So you can see that we use qualitative analysis to come up with insights from the key informant interviews. And then we use econometric models to come up with the findings from that stage. So you can see the different things that we used. And then these are some of the key actors. I think I'm going to leave the findings back to Derrydean.
Yeah, so the next bit, we're going to jump straight to the other bit of the trust corridor conversation, where we are looking at, for us to have this corridor, we need to actually map out how the innovation market looks like. And that's where we have Dr. Adomdza on here.
Right. Thank you so much. And yeah, it's the same thing. I don't want to be the one between you and lunch at all, but we have to do it. So as Derrydean and Dr. Acheampong have already said, through this research, it was a question of how does innovation happen? How can we map it? How can that map be a guide to help us help innovators be more successful getting innovations from labs to market? And I think a lot of the panels have done a really good job in helping us validate the model that we came up with. And I think you can go to it. So this will be the last thing. So it's the idea that innovation, there's a nucleus of factors that really drive innovation, right? You have the regulators and then you have the innovators, and they're always fighting. There's this yin-yang that is sort of driving innovation. The panelists shared it. Innovation normally will come from a risk intent. I think Kwame Yopon was reminded us that the large companies, the telcos, they do a lot of market research, understanding customer engagement. But then the real question is, how does that data benefit the public beyond these companies, right? So the intent is important. The last panelists talked about how we can be a bit more intentional in identifying innovation hubs or pointers across the continent and work together to drive it. So we realize that intention and funding go hand in hand. Research development, we see that a lot of our research end in publications. A very few of research output goes into development. I mean, it's great that this project funded by RISA is ending in something like a framework that we've actually taken on the road and tested. So there's a need for a lot more funders to push for research and development as outcomes. Intellectual property, big problem. When we went around and spoke to innovators, that's one thing when we talked to different stakeholders, that's one thing we found. If you meet an innovator and they show you something for you to invest in, and they ask you who owns it, and all of that, of course, the next question is, what happens if someone else takes this and runs with it? How do I get my money back? So whether we like it or not, intellectual property is a huge factor, it's a huge barrier in the research commercialization process. Most of our agencies have IP, either tech transfer offices and so forth. But if you go around, Madam from CSR is here, the universities and so forth, you don't see intellectual property. I was telling my best inventor, Professor Bagan Luri here, this man has 21 patents. 21. If you go around, you give it up to him. CSR, all the universities will be very jealous about his patent count. Because do you know any university in Ghana that has more than 10 patents? 5? CSR, right? So there's something wrong with the IP process. We can't pretend that it's not important. We can't pretend that it's working. Of course, he got most of those patents in the US. That environment allowed him to be able to protect the IP and commercialize and get revenue from it. So IP came up as one of the things that we really need to put a focus on. And then I won't go through all of them. Prototyping, we talked to a lot of scientists who said that when they talk to industry says, can we see the commercial version of your prototype? But their research funding only takes them to the lab version. So who's going to give them the money to take the prototype to the commercial version, right? The investor doesn't want to do that because they're not sure if it's going to work. So again, we've heard a lot of examples where they say this is where government comes in to support with prototype funding and so forth. I won't go through all of them, and I'm going to invite Derrydean to maybe identify a couple of the areas. Maybe I'll just touch on another one here, licensing. So when Ceci was sharing that when he went and talked to the farmers and they said, well, this is great, but why would we buy it when other people who don't buy it will also be able to sell? He went on and established a venture that produced, added a number of value propositions to the moisture detector, right? A lot of innovators don't do that. They just say, okay, this is not going to work. I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm a scientist. I'm an innovator. I'm not going to leave my job and go and be an entrepreneur. So that it ends there. This is where licensing comes in. He could have licensed the moisture device to an entrepreneur who will then take it to market and go through all those pains. But we don't have that process. Most people, this is where concepts of trust and all of this coming. Most people just don't think that way. Most innovators don't think that way. I'll give you my innovation and then you give me Nokofio every month. What if you come back and say, it's not working, the market is bad, oh, you won't believe, so this is an area that we really need to work on. And there were so many insights that we gathered as we built the model. And we're very excited that a lot of the panels have been able to have validated a lot of the points. And maybe you can add to it if you,
So one of the questions that you ask is, where do I fit in, right? Within a model like this. And the power of this model is the innovation economies that it activates. So let's pick research intent. That's where you start writing your research proposals. That is where now you can set up a company and be helping others write research proposals and be charging them for it or taking a cut of the grant or as a service. So that's one economy that can be activated. Funding framework. That's where the banks can come in with business models. That's where those who have a lot of money sitting somewhere can now start, in setting up companies to now fund either early stage research or fund prototype research or fund product development. So now there's visibility on the possibilities within the value chain. Now you pick intellectual properties. The lawyers are in their corner doing litigation, doing corporate law. Maybe they can now start focusing more on innovation law or patent law or any kind of law. So the purpose of mapping out the value chain is to unravel the opportunities for movement of, money or movement of services across the value chain. Then those of us who like marketing, go to market activities. Now that's why the ad agencies, that's where the companies that are into marketing come, the PR firms, all the companies that are able to move things or bring about product sales. That's where you come in. So this value chain map now amplifies and lets you see that you can fit in somewhere. And that's where you come in when it comes to, so what does this mean to me? So you can look at the value chain map and see what you can do when it comes to licensing. See what you can do when it comes to conformity assessment, something like quality assurance, standards. There are people here, you have consultancy firms. Maybe you are limited in your ideas. Now you can help SMEs move their products through the Ghana Standards Authority or FDA process. And you can present that as a service. And that could be a business opportunity for you. So this value chain map, apart from helping us figure out the Innovation Trust Corridor, also stimulate and activate real innovation economy that can bring about true innovation commercialization. Yeah, George.
I think what I would say is that everybody should try and read this report.
Yeah.
We've done a very thorough work. There are different contexts. We've taken into account the Ghanaian context. So this is not your typical work that is Europeanized. It takes into account the rural context and every single thing. For instance, product development within rural context. So there is space for everybody. We've done a thorough work. And if you read it, I'm sure you get more opportunities than Derry is actually really talking about.
Right.
So please read it.
Right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. One of the lead researchers on this was Dr. Mami Ble-Ejay and Professor Louise Asiedu. And then we had immense support from Olusegun, from FCDO and other FCDO team members. So thank you very much.